frankly, I get a little tired of my fellow young middle-aged people saying, phrases that start with kids today.
Yes.
I just don't really like that.
Yes, and the kids today are listening.
Hey everybody, this is Gary Smith with Nectar Bridge. We do back office support for small businesses with accounting, operations, and software support. This is the Nectar Bridge podcast. And I'm joined today by Kim McCutcheon with Lorica Leadership. Did I say that name right, Kim?
You got it right, Lorica Leadership.
Okay, got it right. Okay, we're beating this time change thing. We're recording on Monday, second day of standard time, and it's got me jet lagged. But Kim is someone that I met recently. I think we first met at a Chamber of Commerce event, and we were rapidly handing each other business cards at the Breakfast and Biz event, and we got talking, and I ended up inviting her to a recent Vantage event where we had Jordan Rayner speak. I'm going to start there. What did you think of that event?
So I thought it was, the first thing that stood out to me was I was so happy to see how many people were there.
Yeah.
For the topic of that event, to see the room that crowded, I thought that was awesome. And Jordan is a very dynamic speaker.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah, I had no problem keeping up and staying focused with, like, he didn't lose me at all. I didn't look at my phone not one time while
yeah.
And that's, when you're a keynote speaker, that's the test. Did they look at their phone while you were on the stage? So I did not look at my phone not one time. So it was good. I enjoyed it.
I hadn't even thought of that aspect. You being a speaker yourself. If you say somebody's a good speaker, that's an achievement, and I'm with you on that. If you can get drowsy listening to Jordan Rayner, you might want to just get checked out by a cardiologist or something, because he is extremely high energy.
Yes.
Well, I also want to bring in the rest of your background. So tell me about your background, including public speaking and the like, and what got you into leadership consulting.
Okay, so I've been in leadership positions all my life. So when I graduated from college, I was commissioned into the Army as a chemical officer. And since we're talking about Huntsville, I always like to just reflect on the fact that my first experience in Huntsville was when I came down to Redstone for training. And I'm going to date myself, but it was back in 1989. I was a young lieutenant, and I was sent down to a class called J5 School at Redstone. And I just loved Huntsville. And I said to my husband then, we're going to retire here someday. And I guess I never lost that. So, fast forward 35 years, and I now have the opportunity to pick wherever I want to go and start a consulting business. And I remembered that. And 25 years in Department of Defense contracting is where I spent the most of my career. So what draws me to Huntsville is because I speak the language. Right. So I went into the military in the Chemical Corps, and I spent my military career in escorting chemical weapons of mass destruction. And when I got out of the military, I did one tour. And when I got out of the military, then I became a defense contractor in the chemical weapons destruction industry. And so all of those DoD contractors, I just speak that language. And I'll tell you this real quick. Yeah. When I decided that I was going to do consulting and trying to pick your market, you have to try to pick the market where you're going to niche and find your audience. When I would do it to business owners, because I'm also a business owner, and I'll tell you that in a minute. And I would tell people what I did for a living for 25 years in chemical weapons and mass destruction and nerve agent and blister agent and all those things. Their eyes just like they can't. they can't relate to that. However, when I go to Huntsville and I go to a chamber event and there are defense contractors in the room and I say, and this is what I used to do, they don't even blink. They're like, well, welcome home, you know? So I love that about Huntsville, is that I don't have to deny the 25 years of weird chemical science that I did. So while I was a contractor, I ran laboratories for chemical weapons destruction projects. And so I did one in Aberdeen, Maryland. There was a chemical weapons stockpile that the United States destroyed there. And then I came down here to Anniston. That's what brought me to Alabama. And we destroyed the chemical stockpile that was here. And then they wanted me to go and do one more. And that stockpile was in Kentucky. But I'll tell you, Gary, I didn't have another one in me. So when you do chemical weapons disposal, in particular my job, the lab, our job was to analyze the samples to tell the plant manager how to dress out the men that were doing this work. And so my data could never be wrong, because if I said that area was clear and it wasn't, and he didn't dress them out right, people could die. And so it was extreme, 24/7, high stress, and I just didn't have another one in me. So I went ahead and left the industry after we did the Anniston one, and I thought, well, I'll do something less stressful. So I bought a elder care business in honor of my grandmother. My grandmother was a very influential person in my life. So I thought, well, I'll just take care of elderly people in honor of her. That is not less stressful. No, sir. That isn't.
You mentioned 24/7 in connection with responsibility with chemical weapons, and that also seems to apply to that industry too, right?
Yeah, it was 24/7. Yes. And I just wanted to love on all my clients. So I did it for 6 years and I did really well. We did really well. And I just wanted to love on them like they were all my grandmother, you know? And so my standards were really high, and I wouldn't hire just anybody to go in there and take care of these people. And so long story short, COVID came, 2020. COVID came, and I closed the business then right before COVID exploded. So March of 2020, I closed my franchise and left that industry, and came back for a little while. I came back into the laboratory industry, and I worked for a little bit at a hazardous waste facility up in Atala, Alabama. But something was just calling me. I'll say I'm faith-based, so God was just calling me out. I have bigger things for you to do.
Yeah.
And so I got my certification as a John Maxwell Leadership Team member. So I am certified and licensed to bring all of John Maxwell's material. And he is the #1 leadership expert on the planet. He delivers this material at the invitation of presidents in other countries. And so it is the best material. So given my leadership roles and given his content, that is what I am now going out. And the focus is I want to help companies bring up the next generation of leaders. And it's challenging to do that in our culture today. And so that's why I'm in the consulting business.
Okay. What would you say we talked before we started recording, you referred to it as the 5 lanes of leadership development.
Yes.
And I wanted to find out more, if you're talking to a business owner, what are the specific things you can offer, and what are those 5 lanes?
So one of the things that we do, I'm a speaker, so I can go to company events and I can bring a keynote on any of the topics that John has written about. So that's one lane. So if there is a corporate retreat, if there is a lunch and learn, if there is something where a company wants to gather their leadership together and they need a speaker, I can do that. Another thing that I can do is coaching. So coaching, can be done in two ways. It can be done one-on-one with a particular individual that they've got some goals that they want to do, and I'll come back and define what coaching means here in a minute. Or it can also be done in a group setting. We call that a mastermind. So if you want to bring a whole team of like newly promoted supervisors together, we would mastermind and I would coach a group of them, and that can be done in person, and that also can be done like this, virtual. I want to define the difference between coaching and counseling. I am a coach. I am not a counselor. And how you know what the difference is counseling deals with things that have happened in the past. Coaching helps you plan and achieve things moving forward. So if it is to recover or deal with or process anything that happened to us previously, that is a counseling opportunity. But if it is I'm stuck and I can't move forward, I'm not making any traction, that is a coaching opportunity. So I am in the coaching lane. Another thing that we do, another lane that I'm in is training. So let's say that the owner of the company has identified that his team doesn't communicate well, and they want to do training on specific items. We can do that in a group setting. We can do that virtually, and it's a training topic that's based on what the company is telling me they're struggling with. We can do training. Another lane is this is my favorite lane though, is the Maxwell DISC assessment. So this is a personality profile, and it is scary. This is what one of my clients said. It is scary accurate. And so the idea behind taking a profile, a DISC profile, is to help you identify what your hardwired personality is like. And then if you know what that's like, we can teach you then how to communicate to your strengths. Or, like for example, let's say that I'm a high D. So high D is a directing, dominant personality type. And so my strength for communication, if you want to get to my heart, you just give me the facts. I don't need a lot of fluff. I don't need a lot of detail. Don't chit chat. Just come in. If you laid it on the line, I would love that. But I also know not everybody communicates that way. And so because I know that I have to temper that when I'm talking to people who aren't a D. So finding out what that personality profile is, and then doing the workshops to help each other communicate, that is my favorite. That's the secret sauce. You can see the lights go on when they go, oh, that's why she talks like that. That's why he is like that. That is my favorite, is the DISC assessment. And then the fifth lane is team building. So for companies that, I like to think this time of year, it's party time, it's holiday time. And so if they want to do some team building where it's fun, and you bring the owner in the room, or you bring the manager in the room, and you get his junior officers or junior leaders together, and you do team building together with the higher ups. That builds, in the military, we call that esprit de corps. And it's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah. So those are my 5 lanes.
You talked about communication styles. Hopefully, I'm not as bad as this in a business setting, but when you and I talked at the coffee shop the other day, you may or may not have observed this about me. One of my friends from high school, when he's trying to parody me, he says, and 47thly, meaning like I do have a tendency to go down into rabbit holes, and it's like we got to climb back out. That's that probably says something about me, right?
Yeah, it does. So just based on that alone, I would say you are probably more tending to be a C in the DISC profile. C people like details. They like details. They like order. They like things to go just so, and they bring a lot of words with it. Yes.
Yeah, I think it is sometimes the reason I end up being so lengthy in a comment once I get started. I guess like the Apostle Paul, it's like I don't want to leave something out. So I need to back up and tell you about this part as well. And by the time
You're definitely.
They're just lost. Yeah. I have to curb that tendency.
Yeah.
When working with clients, what are some of the type of organizations that you are interested in working with? Who do you think you can help the most?
I would say probably mid-sized companies, because they're the ones that they can't afford a training department.
Okay.
And the work is coming too hard and fast now that they don't have time to do it. And I would say that's a perfect lane for me. Let me come in and do that for you so that you then, Mr. Business Owner, can focus on the business until you get to that level where you can hire your own training department. So I'd say mid-level. So, I don't ever want to rule anybody out. I can do this business to customer, so B2C. I can do it if there is somebody that's trying to climb a ladder and their company is not supporting that, and they have the initiative and they want to go do it on their own. They can reach out to me, and I can do B2C work, but primarily I would say it's B2B and 25 employees and more.
Okay.
And the person that hears me fastest are the HR managers.
Yes.
They're the ones that hear me fastest. And here's what gets their attention. When I say things to them like, do you have drama in your workplace? And as soon as that comes out of my mouth, I have them. They look at me and they go, please tell me what you can do with that. I can help you. If you have drama in the workplace, it's because the communication isn't where it needs to be.
Right.
And so when we do these personality profiles and we teach people how to communicate, the drama lessens significantly.
To expand on that a bit, what are some other concrete consequences of having company culture problems that make investing in this kind of training worthwhile?
So probably examples. So I'll tell you the reasons first.
Mm-hmm.
It's generational. So
Right.
in our workplace today, there are 5 generations that are working in culture today. And so that is such an extreme spread that the generations that are furthest apart, they don't know how to relate to one another. So, and logically, if you would follow that out, the oldest generation is going to be the one with the money and the one with the decision-making power. But the youngest generation is going to be who's doing the work, most of the work. And if they can't communicate with one another, here's some things that happen. This youngest generation doesn't feel appreciated. They don't feel like they're being heard. They don't feel like they matter to the company. And so retention is really difficult at the younger lane if the older generation doesn't know how to communicate with them. So if you wanted to do ROI, just ask the owner, how much did it cost to hire your last person and get them trained up? If they only stayed for 3 months and you had to hire them again, that money right there would pay for what I do.
Yes. Turnover, I think, is the silent killer. People often don't recognize how much it's costing them, or even when they hear numbers, they don't seem to quite believe it.
Right.
I offered my services to a guy who has been through 3 different people since we talked. And, I don't want to talk too much about that particular case, but it's like, maybe if you had hired me, maybe you wouldn't have been through 3 iterations of trying to get somebody to learn this task. Sorry, I don't want to make it too much of an infomercial about me, but that comes to mind when it comes to turnover. I want to talk about generations. You mentioned, all the generations that are in the workplace, and if I can remember them all, we do have a few silent generation. We have a lot of boomers. I'm Gen X myself, and Millennials, I refuse to believe millennials are getting middle age, but they are.
They are.
And
They're turning 40. Yes, they are.
yes,
Yes.
and that's troublesome because I was in high school 40 years ago. But anyway, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, my kids are Gen Z. And I'm glad that you said what you did about sometimes the younger generation not feeling appreciated, because frankly, I get a little tired of my fellow young middle-aged people saying, phrases that start with kids today.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just don't really like that.
Yes. And the kids today are listening.
Yes.
They don't like it either. They
Of
really
course.
don't. I heard an interesting term today that I'll share with you. It's called reverse mentoring.
Mm,
And what it refers to is, okay, so when you think of traditional mentoring, it's older to younger.
right.
So that still exists and we still need it. So we're going to teach what we know about business and insert a subject here, family, doesn't matter, because we've lived it. And so we're going to teach what we know. However, reverse mentoring is because technology is advancing so quickly that this young generation knows more than we do about technology. So once a great way to establish a relationship, and that's what is the difference maker. Gone are the days where the totalitarian, my way or the highway, and you're going to do it like I tell you to. Those days are over. So you need to do relational managing. And one of the best ways to be a relational manager is allowing space for reverse mentoring. So after you've told, you've established a relationship with this young worker and you've said, okay, this is how we're going to approach XYZ project. And then you sit with them and say, okay, now, I don't know how to do this thing on my phone. And I'm sure you could do it in 3 seconds. Tell me what you know. And let them then invest in you. And what that does is you're sending a message to them that they matter. They have value. And that they will stay. They will stay if they feel like they mean something and have value.
Yeah. I think, and hopefully I haven't done it to my kids too much, but something that my kids have expressed some degree of frustration with when getting, here's one of the joke tropes about like Gen X and up advising the younger kids is, hey, you're looking for a job, you need to put on a suit and go hand out resumes. And it's like, hey, Dad, that doesn't work anymore. I've never said that to my kids seriously because I knew it didn't work. But they really do very justifiably dislike being called out or singled out about supposed work ethic defects. And the fact is, there are people of every age. There have always been people of every age who are great workers. And then again, there's always been people of every age who weren't. And so I really, to be quite honest, I think there are legitimate generational differences. I think sometimes they're overblown, meaning too much is made of them or too much behavior is blamed on what generation you are, when everyone really needs to take responsibility for themselves.
Right? And if we could all come around the common goal of we want this project or this family or this company to be successful. And there is no such thing as one person's going to carry all of that. It takes all of us to carry that. And so if we could just allow space for the talent that they bring. Now let's be real, there are times where you just know that there's going to be people that don't fit in a certain culture. And that takes me back to, these personality profiles, especially I like to say to the HR people for key hires. So let's say that you know that the department manager that you are hiring for, we've done a personality profile on her and you know that she's a high D. We know that. Okay, the opposite of a D is an S. So the S are the stable and they're the team players and they're the ones that are cohesive. And the majority of our population today, most of them, 68%, are S's. Okay, but that's the opposite of a D. So if it's a key hire that's going to have to work with that D manager and you have time to invest in it, I would do a personality profile on the applicant and see whether or not that D is going to be able to get along, communicate well with whoever that applicant is. And people would say, well, that takes too long. Yeah, but not if 3 months from now you're firing that person because they did not get along with that department manager. And if you'd have known that going in, you'd have avoided all that heartache and paperwork and all that. So getting to know people, relational management, that's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Okay. Got one more question, and then if you got anything else you want to add, that's fine too. But my one more question is, while you have mostly worked perhaps with medium-sized companies and so forth, what is your take on the company culture of very small businesses? And a lot of times those very small businesses are family businesses as well. What challenges do companies like that face when trying to establish a healthy company culture?
Probably good communication on boundaries.
Yes.
On boundaries. I think when we work in a family-owned business, we bring that family relationship and that familiarity into the workplace. And sometimes that can muddy the waters. And so having good communication around boundaries, having good communication around expectations.
Yes.
You can't do a lot of assuming when it's a small family-run business, because if the one person's in there thinking that my son is going to pick this up and run with it, and the son's in there thinking, as soon as I can, I'm out, they're not communicating. So boundaries, good expectations, and then giving everybody a voice. Everybody has to have a voice so that we all know what page we're on.
Absolutely. And what you said about understanding whether or not second generation or subsequent generations want to continue, is this what they wanted to do with their life? I think having really honest conversations about that is really key. It's very natural to expect or believe that if you ran a restaurant, and especially if your parents before you ran this restaurant, well, naturally, the person who's following you and your family will want to run this restaurant. And it's not necessarily the case.
Not necessarily the case. Yes, they may hate it. They just don't want all their weekends and to be in a restaurant. So yeah, right. Good communication.
Well, is there anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked or that you wish I'd asked?
Probably just a little bit about my certification with John Maxwell.
Okay.
That material is just, he's been doing this. John's 78 now.
Yeah.
And he is still, if we could all keep up with him, we'd be doing really well. He is tremendous. And so for those who might be listening that understand that name and have been reading John Maxwell books for forever, I think that just lends to, it's not, at Lorica, it's not just Kim McCutcheon that's coming. And you are on the Maxwell Leadership Team, you have a whole cadre of people that will come and surround me. And if I was presented with an situation that I didn't understand how to help that customer, I have a whole cadre of leadership experts that I can draw from. And I think that just needs to be mentioned. It is outstanding. Outstanding.
Okay, great. Well, once again, this has been Kim McCutcheon with Lorica Leadership, and I'm Gary Smith with Nectar Bridge. Kim, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate it too.